Welcome to Understand Tomorrow, where we invite industry-leading thinkers and doers to tell their story and impart their wisdom with the next generations. I'm Kevin, and this is my co-host, Camilla. And today we have the pleasure of hosting two young, inspirational entrepreneurs, and Ronan and Robin. Thank you so much and welcome to Rotterdam.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Yes.
So it's a pleasure to be here with you. Can you maybe share a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Robin. I'm 21 years old. I'm Dutch, and I just studied at Maastricht University, so it's in the south of the Netherlands, together with Ronan. We were roommates before, and since last year we started our own business. It's my second business personally, so no.
Yep, and so as already mentioned, my name is Ronan. I'm 22 years old, and I'm German. It's also my third business now, actually, which I'm involved in, so a little bit of experience already.
Okay.
Awesome.
And what about some of your main milestones, challenges, and maybe how would you describe each other in one word? Because you've been working for a while together.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I would definitely describe Robin as driven. That's the one word I would use for him.
Yeah. I think Ronan is just born smart in a way. Like, he doesn't need to work much to get the right results. We saw that at uni, but also at Student Up. You see that it just comes natural to him. That's pretty nice.
And what about, because like whenever you start something, you kind of look up to someone. You're kind of trying to follow someone's footsteps, but on the way create your own. So for you, who would it be?
That's an interesting question, actually, because for both of us, that's Stephen Bartlett, the CEO of the Social Chain Group. And that's actually how the whole company started, because I was watching a video by Stephen Bartlett on my TV, and then I just had an epiphany of like, I don't really want to go and do a master's straight after my bachelor. I don't want to go into a corporate. I want to start my own company. I was working in startups before, but I want to do my own thing. And so I took a Snapchat of it, and I said, yo, Robin, getting corporate jobs afterwards or doing a master's. Let's start a business together. And we still have that Snapchat, actually. And we're using it to contact Stephen at the moment.
It actually marks the beginning of our journey of Student Up, because I remember I was in Sydney on my exchange year, and I had this idea before already in a little competition at uni. We pitched it and everyone liked it. And then when Ronan sent me that Snapchat, I sent the business plan to him, and then he loved it. I loved it. We started. So that was really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And can you elaborate on kind of how that unfolded? Like, right, so you sent that Snapchat, and you both got fired up. Okay, what happened afterwards?
Well, I think the Snapchat is not like, it didn't come all at once. We had been kind of joking about it before for quite some time. But I think in order to go back to the beginning of Student Up, we have to go to kind of our stories before that, right? So personally, I love building things. Like, I've always loved it in my high school, and before that already, I built like little things or little groups to organize things. For example, I organized a group that made the minimum wage higher in the Netherlands, in the entire country, for young people.
No way.
Then in our own town, we built like a whole sports park by raising like crowdfunding and going to the municipality. And like, when I joined uni, I just wanted to try out to start a business to see if it was something for me. And then I started this clothing business called Ductis. And basically, if you start a clothing business, I had no experience whatsoever in doing that. So I couldn't design things, I couldn't market a product, I couldn't build a website. And in the end, I learned all of this myself, but it would have been way nicer if someone else would be with me, right? Just to build this. And that's basically how the idea for Student Up came, because Ronan was in the same building as me. He was living with me, and I didn't know that he was available for Ductis to join me. And he really wanted that at the time, actually. So.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's a slightly different story. So as I mentioned before, I was already involved in two startups before that. But for me, it was less about the need to actually start my own business, but more for the need to find intrinsic motivation. So with the entire uni system and also the prospect of joining a corporate afterwards, I never really felt like I'll be able to fulfill my potential or to actually leave a lasting impact on the company or even on society. And I was always searching for that kind of differentiating factor of how can I turn my job into passion or turn my passion into a job. And when Robin came about with the idea for Student Up, I thought, yeah, actually this fits really well.
Okay.
Okay, so many of the students nowadays really want to go into the corporate world because there's more certainty in it. There's less risk of failing, and it's obviously really overwhelming and challenging to get into something like this. You just say, okay, let's just start our own thing.
Yeah.
So what kind of hurdles did you personally face, and how did you overcome them? How was the process of going through all of it?
Yeah, it's definitely a very good question. I think a lot of people here, students want to start a business because if you think about it, your student time is the best time to do this, right? You don't depend on any income or whatsoever. You have a lot of smart people around you that are also young and energetic. However, actually, Ronan and I, what we saw, we went to San Francisco, I think 2 months ago, to go to U.C. Berkeley to see what the vibe is there, because there, for students, it's really normal to start businesses. Actually, it's the university that produces the highest amount of entrepreneurs in the world. And what we saw there is that the whole culture is so different between there and here. Like here at university, what you get taught is that starting a business is risky. You're almost crazy if you do that. Like your parents and your teachers tell that constantly to you that, this is a stupid idea, don't do it, you're going to lose money, etc. And there it's completely different. There you're encouraged to do it, to take risks and to fail. Because what they see there, what they don't see here is that even if you take a risk, in the end, if you start a business and it fails, like you have so many job opportunities that come from that, right? So let's say Student Up fails tomorrow. Ronan and I already actually get constantly job opportunities through LinkedIn, or we earn 90K a year or so already. Like we just have a bachelor, that's it. But just because we start this business, we are perceived as high talent for those companies. And I think that is what people don't really see here. There's a lot of hurdles that you have to go through, right? Like as a student, you don't have a lot of money, for example. Everybody tells you that you're crazy. I think that those probably are the biggest ones, I think.
Yeah, I definitely also think that the psychological hurdles are quite high. Like the kind of isolation that you have when you start a business. So now, for example, we're both facing it in Amsterdam. Yeah. We just moved there 2 weeks ago, and normally, when you move into a new city, you have a place to be every single day. You have a job to be, you have a university to be, a school to be at. And right now, we're looking for co-working spaces to work at. But for the past 2 weeks, we've just been working from home. And it's like, how do I meet people? How do I get? How do I socially integrate myself? Yeah. So that's definitely a very big hurdle, and overcoming this is basically just putting yourself out there, just randomly talking to people on the street, even. Yeah. So that's one thing that is oftentimes not emphasized so much in the entrepreneurial field. That the isolation from the outside world is quite high. Yeah. On top of that, motivation. So there's a lot of setbacks. Like we've personally faced 1 million setbacks in the past year, where we would launch our product, we wouldn't get the user retention rate that we would want. Then we completely redesigned the product. Now we're thinking of redesigning it again, and there's a lot of backwind that comes basically. So you have to really keep going. And the biggest problem which entrepreneurs usually face is that they don't have someone to pick them up when they fall down. Yeah. So this is why actually our team is pretty great, because we're 3 people who all have that motivation. Yeah. So that if one or even 2 of us are completely on the ground thinking, okay, this is it, this is never going to work, then there's always one person who can pick them up again. Yeah. And I think that's where, that's our differentiating point of where we're able to overcome these hurdles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the psychological barrier is huge, especially if you start something and you're not sure if it's ever going to work out, if you're ever going to earn a cent from it, for example. That is a pretty big factor for a lot of people. Yeah.
So okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm sorry. What's it called? I was going to ask. So can you tell us maybe more about, so you mentioned how students here, they don't really tend to go to the corporate world and into the entrepreneurial world, and they tend to go to the corporate world. And then you mentioned how I think you went for 3 months to San Francisco.
Yes.
And how different was it? Like, what did you feel? Did you feel that the universities there, they build a community that's more like open, more curious? Or
Yeah.
What are the
absolutely.
differences?
I mean, I can put a direct example on it. So we gave a lecture in an entrepreneurship course, and we talked to the professor right afterwards, and just a couple of numbers. So he ran this course for 9 years. Out of this course, 35 successful startups emerged with a total valuation of around $8.3 billion US.
Would it be?
Yeah. And the reason for that being is in that course they look at having the optimal mix of students, from different backgrounds, from different fields. And then at the end of the course, guided by a professional who knows how to validate a product, who knows what kind of research you have to do into it, they get a bunch of different VCs and angel investors from the area to come to the demo day where they can directly invest into these ideas. And I think the support from the educational system that's there in the US and especially in Silicon Valley just tops and trumps every university here in Europe, even though there is a lot being done at the moment.
Yeah. So VCs literally come to class to invest in companies. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think the whole culture is just different. You know, how people approach it, how people think about it.
Yeah.
I think that fundamentally is the difference.
Yeah,
you know?
we watched one lecture at UC Berkeley. We just went to it. That's why we spoke with that one lecturer. And it was one of Ronan's first lectures, by the way. But it was also the lecture that, it was one lecture that I followed there, and I was so inspired afterwards. It's probably the best lecture I've ever seen, just because of the vibe that the guy gives. He teaches everyone to just try, and fail.
Yeah,
that's not bad there. It's a good thing.
You have to be an optimist to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Definitely, because if you're a pessimist, then you're never going to succeed.
Yeah.
There's going to be at least one obstacle, at least one hurdle every single day, and if you don't look on the bright side, then that's just going to drag you down, and you're gonna quit.
And on this note, how do you stay motivated? Like, how do you stay on top of the game?
Each other.
Yeah, okay.
100%. Yeah. There's been a lot of times that, like Ronan just said before, like that one of us or two of us actually were really demotivated, and the other one takes each other off the ground again. That's how it works. If you're alone, I personally don't believe in one person startups, because at some point you're gonna get demotivated, and who's gonna help you off, right? Help you out. That's not gonna happen then. So also we have 4 mentors that help us in the day-to-day business and in the strategy to go in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we're all 3 okay, this is not going to work, then our mentors will take us.
Okay.
With
and I also think one of the most important factors in a startup is honesty. Yeah. So this is not just honesty about strategic decisions, but also about feelings and personality. Because there's so much always there's so much repressed always in a lot of business situations where there's personal feelings getting involved towards someone because they're not acting in a certain way. And if you're in a 2 or 3 person startup, then if you repress those, it's just gonna end up in a mayhem.
They come back and hunt you, later down the line.
So if something annoys you, then you say it.
Yeah, that's what is really great about our team, because I think a lot of startups fail because there's some sort of dispute in the team.
Right.
And for us, it's been so amazing to see that every time that someone was feeling something, then they would always be open about it, and we could resolve it. So that's always really nice. Yeah. So we help each other stay on top of our game. Really, that's
I love that. I completely agree.
I agree with that. It's really nice to have a good team. Just be able to rely on each other and one another. Yeah. I'm just curious how it all happened, because I can't simply imagine you had a business idea, then you just went to San Francisco, and then what happened there? Yeah. Did you just go around, get inspired, and then come back and do something?
Yeah. So how long were you there?
Yeah.
It was in total, I think, 1.5 months.
Okay.
We were supposed to stay there for 3, I think.
2 months we were there actually.
Yeah, 2 months. Yeah, we were supposed to be there longer at least, because we were convinced that would be our future, that area. We were going there in order to set up the business already, in order to come back later. But then we found out that we're just a lot more needed here in Europe because of that ecosystem that is already in place there. Our goal, our initial goal, was to give student entrepreneurs a chance to start up the business by finding each other, etc. And there, it's really easy to find people to start your business with. Here, it's a lot harder. So when we went there and we saw that insane ecosystem that is already in place there, we were like, okay, this is amazing, but we want to take this to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
That was our goal there. Basically, the reason, that was the reason why we went there. Also, one of our mentors said that you should check out San Francisco. Like, it is insane. Like, if you want to start a business for other entrepreneurs, you should have seen that at least. So that's why we went.
So it was inspiration.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you want to bring that here now and try to build that ecosystem here.
Yes, partially. Yeah.
Okay.
Like it was basically we're right now in a period where we're pivoting towards sort of other direction. It is still that we want to help students to find their passion in entrepreneurship, but also in other areas, right?
Okay.
So we saw that the biggest problem actually for students at the moment is that they have no clue what they want to do, right? So I think we did research. I think 80% of students had that last year,
and like in the last 3 years that they felt confused or didn't know what they were going to do with their professional career.
Exactly. And the reason why a lot of students are so attracted to the startup world is because if you build a startup or if you join a startup, you can try out a lot of different things, right?
Right.
So in one startup, you don't necessarily do one thing only, right? You're not specialized in what you do in a corporate internship, getting coffee or so, I don't know. But you do a lot of different things and you can try out and find what you like. And we aim to give students the opportunity to find out what they like during their study time for their future career, basically.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. I think that's basically what Erasmus Tech Community is trying to do. We're just trying to aware more students of the different opportunities there are, of the different fields, of how technology more and more is helping businesses, like they're enabling the concrete foundations in something new. Yeah. And but I just at the same time, many students just tend to not go into the startup world. Yeah. And I just why would you think that? Like, what's stopping them more than the fear of uncertainty and just
I think probably they think they can't do it. That is like what I hear quite often. Like they see, at least back in Maastricht, everyone was like, "Wow, you start a business right now? Like what? Like why? You know, like how?
You have to earn money. Like what?"
Yeah. And it's seen as such a big thing, whereas it doesn't have to be. It's just a couple of people that try to figure some stuff out, right, and try to build something that's not that crazy. And people think that they can't do it, and therefore they go for this like boring internship, and then they go on this boring career that they don't want, whereas they never try other things out that they would actually like to do. That's what I saw quite often, actually.
I think it's the entire atmosphere. It's just like we mentioned before, in the US it's encouraged. In Europe, failing as a startup is seen as a failure. Right. And not as a learning process.
Exactly.
And this is actually something where, we're very, very privileged in terms of our parents as well, because they 100% support what we're doing. And mine, for example, said, okay, even if you're taking this year out now and, you're not going to do a master's, it doesn't matter, because this past year, you've been taught more than you have been the entire time that you were attending university. I mean, I've been going to TechCrunch in San Francisco, in Berlin, doing this podcast, talking to different partners, talking to executives at the university levels and also at company levels. So the kind of experience you get from starting your own business cannot be compared to a low or mid-level job of a corporate, the responsibility especially.
No, 100%. You take things in your own hands. You have to take ownership of something, and you build something together. Like it's beautiful. You learn just the learning experience itself. That's completely worth it. If this completely goes to shit, doesn't work out, this will still be completely worth it.
100% agree. Like it's a big point on our CV. Then we will get a job in a couple of weeks. That's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like it formed your identity and your character. It was a formative experience. I think, right?
We also have quite a large network now that we can tap into later.
Exactly.
It's amazing. Like it's been one of the best decisions of my life. Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And so what are you curious about right now? What are your next goals? What do you want to learn? What's your next plan?
For Student Up or in general?
In general.
Okay. What I'm really interested in personally is for example, one of my idols is Elon Musk.
Okay.
Like he was my hero for a long time, or still actually, and I'm really curious to see how that like his company SpaceX will work out if he actually manages to get people to Mars and build like civilization there, right? Because that's also what's coming in the coming years. Like there's a lot of space companies coming up. That's really interested to see that. Yeah.
We saw one company in San Francisco who was building gas stations in space.
Yeah.
No way.
And we were just like,
what? It sounds crazy, right? But it's coming. Like
Gas stations.
Yeah. Because you need to refuel at some point, and if you constantly have to go back to a planet to do that, then it's kind of inefficient. So. Yeah.
That is so sci-fi. I love it.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It was like in the middle of a Star Wars episode,
Yeah.
It's really cool. And then for Student Up in general, I think I'm really curious to see how much impact we can have on people's lives and students' lives, to see how much potential we can get out of there.
How do you measure that? Like,
really difficult. It's really just, I think, by talking to your users, like having in-person conversations with them and see like what you did to them. That's what positive impact you made.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to consumer satisfaction, and if you have people messaging you on Instagram or on Facebook saying, "Wow, I love what you guys are doing. This is exactly what I need. This is going to help me out with taking some difficult life choices, in terms of career and development," then you're doing something right. Exactly. So the more of those kind of messages you get, and the more you can feel that you're touching people's lives, that's kind of how we measure our success.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And now looking back at what you've done, like if you could go back in time, right? What is on day one? What is like something you tell your past self? Like what's one advice you'd give yourself?
Yeah, we thought about this actually.
The thing is, when we started, we made a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
We made a lot of assumptions about what students are interested in, what students need, and how we are going to solve that for them. So we were so eager to start and so eager to build that straight away we got our programmers in and we just started building the product. Actually, we were supposed to launch 27th of May of last year. So yeah, it's
a bit of a delay.
A bit of a delay, yeah. I mean, we have a beta version out, but we're reiterating that again. So definitely the biggest advice I would give to 1 year ago Ronan and Robin is validate your concept and validate your solution until it's not possible to validate it any further. Make sure that what you're building is exactly what people need, not necessarily want, but need. And that's basically the big thing. Because right now we're in the process of doing that, and well, actually we've done that now, and that's why we're going to start building into a slightly different direction. But if we had had that same approach a year ago, then probably we would have been there by like half a year ago.
Okay, so gathering as much feedback as possible
to
ensure that your value proposition is solid, basically, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So, and you can do that. Like we also knew that we had to do that, but we started doing that by building a product and launching it and see what people think, right? And that obviously costs a lot of time. But before you do that, you can also already do a lot of in-person interviews with people, ask them about their problems and find out where their pain points are, see where you can improve those pain points, and then build your minimum viable product. So I think if we would have done that before, it would have been a lot faster, like Ronan said. Yeah.
Okay, and is that what you would have also told your past self?
Exactly. Yeah.
By the way, this is also in no term saying that you shouldn't build an MVP or you shouldn't get your product out as quickly as possible.
Right.
The problem that we faced was that our MVP was almost production level product. So we put in way too much effort. I don't really want to say effort, but we paid too much attention to detail in our MVP, and then when it was done, we had spent 2-3 months on development, whereas we could have probably tested the features in a different way and only spent 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Whereas a minimum viable product, it should be something really quick and easy that you make and you launch within a week or so. That's
yeah, exactly. I mean, at that stage, you could have used those resources differently. Your time, your energy, the capital. You could have built something on a surface level, tested that, and use that energy differently. And
Yep.
you're saying that would have made the difference, maybe when how fast you moved
Exactly.
forward, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what about an advice to those students who want to start their own thing? What would you advise them?
Do it.
Just do it.
It's really like that's the only thing. Like you can think about it for ages, but if you don't do anything, then it's never gonna happen, right? So like you have to start somewhere, wherever that is. If whether you make a logo, whether you get a teammate on board, whether you make a website, just do something to start, and then other people will see it and will help you. That is the only way to start.
And honestly, start as early as possible, especially like we said in your time at university. It can also really help you with some intrinsic motivation for the courses that you're taking. So oftentimes what I had during my time at uni was that some of the courses that I was doing, I was like, what am I doing this for? Like, am I going to use this later on in my job? And if you have something which you can directly relate this to the entire time, so for example, I'm starting a marketing agency and I'm taking marketing management as a course. I can directly see where the skill sets that I'm learning at university would be applied in practice. So this can really also help with motivation. And like we said, the financial security that you have during your time at university, either you're supported by your parents or the government, usually at least, that's something that you will rarely have after you graduate.
Yeah. Exactly. But make sure that if you start your business, make sure that is something that you really like doing and that you're really passionate about yourself, like internally. Because only then it's going to work out. If you only do it to make a bunch of money, it's never going to work because you're not going to make a bunch of money, at least in the first 2-3 years,
Yeah, you guys know that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also make sure that you identify a problem or a gap in the market and that you don't create one. Because that's what a lot of startups do. They create a problem in order to create a solution for it, but creating a problem isn't going to solve anything,
Right.
So
yeah.
You can only reach your customers if it's really something that they need.
Yeah, that is actually one of my favorite quotes from Michael Siebel. Michael Siebel is a CEO of Y Combinator. It's like the biggest accelerator of the United States, or the most famous one. And he always says, like, people always think about ideas and they have an idea book, they write down ideas in there. But if people would have a problem book where they write in problems and then solutions, then it would be a lot more successful, right? So a lot of people think, hey, I want to start this blockchain business or whatever. And then they don't think, what problem would that solve for people? Like, do people even need that, But if you first see something that people want or need and then build it, then it's a lot more successful.
Yeah, and this ties in very well with the advice you give your past self, which is validate.
Yeah.
Make sure this is something people need.
Exactly.
And that the value is there so that you don't waste unnecessary resources, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Spot on. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, thank you very much for this. I think we both, Kevin and I, and whoever is listening is inspired and just motivated, and we just want to do what you did. So
Well,
thank you for this.
Yes.
And we wish you the best with your next challenges, with your goals, with the second half of the student up. And
Yes, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
It was
you
a
for having
pleasure.
us on.
Thank you.